Good morning, rise and shine, or rising and shine, I guess.
That's a good, let's change the name.
I've never said that, I don't think, not once in 5 years.
I'm bringing out the best in you, the sunshine and rainbows.
Yes, you are. Well, I'm glad to see you in such a positive mood. I know you had a harrowing journey back to our fair city.
It was a disaster. I'm just getting acclimated to D.C. and you missed one Amtrak. Acela Express cost $1 million.
She drove here from New York in the middle of the night.
I just drove in the middle of the night.
That's crazy.
It was ridiculous. But thank you to the Avis team that allowed me to get a car the same day in the middle of Manhattan.
So, glad you made it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm delirious. Coming up on Rising, California Governor Gavin Newsom is taking action against masked ICE agents, but will the new bill be enforceable?
And plus, Governor Josh Shapiro is taking a jab at former President Kamala Harris.
And I'll be
Vice President, excuse me, not
yes,
the President.
Yeah, and I'll be discussing how the right seems to be betraying their free speech principles when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel. But first, Robby, what is on your radar today?
Oh, I have a similar subject that I'm addressing. Now, according to the latest news, as you just announced, Lindsey, Jimmy Kimmel is negotiating a return to late night after being yanked off the airwaves following his deplorable comments implying that Tyler Robinson, the alleged murderer of Charlie Kirk, was actually part of the MAGA gang. Of course, everything we've learned about Robinson suggests he was not himself part of MAGA. Rather, he allegedly killed Kirk because Kirk was MAGA. Kimmel should not have implied otherwise. He's not alone, of course. Incorrect notions about the suspect's political tribe have remained enduringly popular in liberal media circles. One of the top mainstream liberal Substack writers, Heather Cox Richardson, wrote last week that the motive of the alleged shooter remains unclear. This is simply not true. Interviews with Robinson's friends, family members, as well as text messages between Robinson and his roommate, his transgender romantic partner, paint a clear portrait of a man who found Kirk's conservative views harmful. Now, while Kimmel is a comedian rather than a newscaster, given how paranoid the mainstream media is about the spread of so-called misinformation, the criticism of Kimmel on this subject was well-deserved. And private businesses, private media companies, well, they're allowed to make decisions about their own programming and decide they don't want to employ, broadcast, or platform someone they disagree with, or someone who's losing money because the audience doesn't like it. Free speech means freedom from government coercion. It does not mean freedom to say whatever you want on somebody else's dime. And so the decision to suspend Kimmel was made by ABC after Nexstar Media and Sinclair Broadcast Group decided not to air him on their local stations. In the interest of full disclosure, Nexstar is the parent company of The Hill, program you're watching. But here's the bigger issue. Again, it's fine to take Kimmel off the air. It's just not okay for the government to take Kimmel off the air. Unfortunately, the Federal Communications Commission, very unwisely in my view, decided to insert itself in this matter. Brendan Carr is chair of the FCC. Not only did he criticize what Kimmel had to say, he also implicitly pressured the broadcasters. Take a look what he said during an interview with conservative influencer Benny Johnson.
But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC. Again, there's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters, and frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back.
We can do this the easy way or the hard way. It's not an idle threat. The FCC licenses broadcast channels and can fine them or even take them off the air. The FCC can make life very difficult for companies that defy it. So I'll say it once again. Private companies have the right to determine their programming as they see fit. And a washed-up comedian telling lame jokes about a subject he is clearly misinformed on for a declining number of viewers as part of a media format that is antiquated and perpetually losing money is not a recipe for riveting television, in my humble opinion. Letting Kimmel and the rest of the late-night crowd go extinct is perfectly fine. It's a business decision. But it is not the FCC's decision. As Glenn Greenwald put it, I couldn't have said it better myself, this shouldn't be a complicated or difficult dichotomy to understand. Jimmy Kimmel is repulsive, but the state has no role in threatening companies to fire on-air voices it dislikes or who the state believes is spreading disinformation, which is exactly what happened here. Moreover, the Trump administration's actions are functionally equivalent to the Biden administration's attacks on private social media companies, which caused numerous free speech infringements during the COVID-19 pandemic. Recall that President Biden, who accused Facebook of killing people when it declined to censor anti-vaccine content, as well as his comm staffers, were likely motivating factors behind a whole host of regrettable moderation decisions made by Facebook at the behest of the White House, the CDC, and other government agencies. when federal employees use the threat of regulation, fines, and other forms of punishment to induce private companies into self-censorship. It's known as jawboning. That's the term. Now, whether this practice violates the First Amendment, which constrains the government's ability to restrict speech, that's not entirely a settled matter. In Murphy v. Missouri, the Supreme Court declined to rule that the Biden administration had violated the First Amendment rights of social media users. The case is also known as Missouri v. Biden. The majority decision, however, had to do with standing and did not actually address the arguments of the plaintiffs. Many free speech scholars rightly believe that the First Amendment rights of private media companies and their users will not be protected until and unless the court makes clear that this sort of behavior from federal bureaucrats, jawboning, is wrong. Ironically, FCC Chair Carr has strongly denounced jawboning in the past and in general been a strong supporter of the First Amendment rights. He frequently called out the Biden administration for engaging in this very practice, writing in August of 2022, "This is very concerning. The government does not evade the First Amendment's restraints on censoring political speech by jawboning a company into suppressing it. Rather, that conduct runs headlong into those constitutional restrictions, as Supreme Court law makes clear." There's simply no way to square this circle. If it's wrong for the Biden administration to pressure social media companies to serve the public interest as defined by Biden and censor fraud content, then it's wrong for the Trump administration to pressure broadcasters to enforce a Trump-defined public interest. Don't just take my word for it. Senator Rand Paul and Senator Ted Cruz, they both agree with me. Cruz said the FCC's actions here were dangerous as hell. That's a direct quote from him. That all conservatives should oppose the FCC trying to pressure companies to make editorial decisions of this kind. And Paul said the following.
You can be fired for not being popular also. I mean, this is television, for goodness sakes. You have to sell sponsorships. You have to sell commercials. And if you're losing money, you can be fired. But the government's got no business in it, and the FCC was wrong to weigh in, and I'll fight any attempt by the government to get involved with speech. I will fight.
Good for them. Cruz and Paul are exactly right on this. I totally agree with them.
I'm glad I'm doing my lens on this because I have a lot to say, but I will respond to some of what you said. I think what the Trump administration is doing, it's like they're trying to just get rid of anybody that doesn't conform to the political speech that aligns with them. And it was even interesting and a step further that President Trump just last week started threatening to possibly revoke the licenses of broadcasters that say too many bad things. And I'm paraphrasing, but you know what he said, like, if you guys have seen him speaking about this, he was like, there's so much negativity about me. We need to revoke these licenses. And I think he's misunderstanding and misusing and often even considering abusing the government in ways, like you said, if private companies don't agree with it, that's fine. But the president should not be inserting himself on whether he's covered unfairly or not. Also, part of that coverage, which conservatives have complained about, bred a slew of conservative outlets that should be amazing for people that felt like there was lack of a voice to level the playing field. I mean, even Reason, where you work, Newsmax popped up in recent years. I mean, we're having multiple different outlets to provide.
Well, Democrats have tried to throttle all those. So that's
but they're here.
The blowback
here.
Here is conservatives say, well, but Democrats try to get Newsmax taken off the air. They try to get Fox taken off the air.
And also with the FCC, I think it's just wholly wrong. So if you understand what the FCC is governing, they're looking at things like, are you running commercials to children? That's against the FCC rules. Is there indecency in the programming?
Right.
That's against the FCC rules. So no matter what you think about Jimmy Kimmel said.
You and I had to familiarize ourselves with
I had to read through all of it.
We're on
yes, we went to an actual seminar about it. But
we were given bars of soap and told to scrub out our mouths.
And we're also under a news division now. So we have to try to be accurate or attribute what we're saying. But with Jimmy Kimmel, people don't understand that he's under the entertainment division at ABC. So it's important to understand the differences between that. And even though he reports a lot of the news through his purview, he's still under the entertainment division. Right. So that's an important distinction.
He should be accountable to his viewers, accountable to the market. He's accountable to his bosses, to the network. The FCC needed not say anything about this matter. I wish they hadn't. But we'll discuss it more when it's time for Your Lens.
We will.
Next up, the president is speaking over the weekend. He did speak over the weekend, rather, at an emotional memorial service for Charlie Kirk. We'll be discussing all of that fascinating, very moving tribute to Charlie Kirk coming up next.
So over the weekend, Turning Point USA held a memorial for its founder and former leader, Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated nearly 2 weeks ago.
Among the many people who paid tribute to Kirk's legacy were many prominent conservative faces, including the president and vice president. Take a listen.
He led boldly, and he argued brilliantly, without apology. He did what was right for our nation. And so on that terrible day, September 10th, 2025, our greatest evangelist for American liberty became immortal. He's a martyr now for American freedom.
May our Heavenly Father give us the courage to live as Charlie lived. That is what we must do for Charlie.
But perhaps the most powerful and emotional moment of the service came when Charlie Kirk's widow, Erika, spoke about her husband and about the shooter.
I will miss him so much because our marriage and our family were beautiful. My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
The service wasn't without controversy, however. President Trump and his deputy chief of staff received some criticism online after the service because of their divisive or reported divisive remarks. Let's take a listen and you decide.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erika.
We are the storm, and our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion. You have no idea the dragon you have awakened.
The service came just a day after the House passed a resolution to honor Kirk's life, a move that was denounced by several high-profile members of the left.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took to the floor of the House Friday to call for a bipartisan condemnation of political violence instead of honoring Kirk himself. Let's take a listen.
His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution.
And Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett took it a step further, slamming her Democratic colleagues that voted in favor of the resolution on CNN's State of the Union on Sunday.
When I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was, specifically to us.
Well, lots to discuss here.
There's so much. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the big takeaway for me is that, Erika Trump, I can't even imagine what she's going through, but there's no way to, she's a star. She's fantastic. I thought her comments were very moving. I thought her forgiveness of the shooter was moving. It was really well done at a moment where I can't believe she even has the presence to be powerful on camera and to help the millions of people who are grieving Charlie Kirk to not the same degree she is, but to guide them through that process. It was fantastic, and she's an incredible woman with an amazing future in the conservative movement.
Yeah, I couldn't even fathom the level of grief she's dealing with, especially being a mother and knowing that they don't have a dad anymore.
Children.
And I was talking to Amber about this because I know she has this new position, and I just was trying to understand and empathize and think about a mom in any moment of grief or loss taking on such a big burden of leading an entire company. I know she's moved by it. I know that she's empowered based on both of her recent speeches, and I know that she can do it because I think that women are fantastic in that way when pedals to the metal to accomplish things. But I also understand that there's a lot going on when you're dealing with any grief, let alone the grief of your husband and children's father. And so I just was asking Amber at that time, does she think that this will be more of a figurehead role and somebody can be in there actually doing the day-to-day? Because this is a big job. I mean, what they say, like thousands and tens of thousands of new chapters might want to open up a whole leadership role. So I really do wish her the best and continue in this journey for herself.
Well, sometimes throwing yourself into hard work is how you can overcome grief, honestly.
I was alarmed, I'm not going to lie, so I thought her speech was beautiful and separate from what President Trump did. He obviously thought it was separate because he said, Erika Kirk, maybe she can reel me in. But I mean, to be in the moment on the heels of such a dramatic and tragic incident like this to say, I hate my enemies, and use it and turn it to me, masquerade this memorial service and make it feel like a political rally. I just thought that was poor timing. Like, there's always a decorum that you expect the president, I say this word, I feel like too often, in alignment with President Trump. And it's not because every time you have to be to this certain bar, but somebody was assassinated for political reasons. And so that's a moment to be presidential. And I just felt like it missed the mark in that moment to try to figure out how you can separate even more and divide.
I'm going to sound like such a liberal, but I agree.
I mean, it's a memorial service. Yeah, there's another time for this. And he started saying Charlie Kirk would want tariffs. Like, what?
Well,
I just feel like that wasn't the time or the place.
Right. Charlie Kirk is a very political figure, so there was going to be some discussion of politics, obviously, at this memorial event. But just in particular, I hate my enemies. He didn't even say, like, I hate the enemies of Charlie Kirk. It was about me, my enemies, at a thing where, at a religious, quasi-religious event.
Where the wife just said she forgave her husband's killer.
Right. I think it undercut that message a little bit. So it was not, in my view, everybody who loves Trump could scream at me. It was not his most presidential moment, in my view.
And I think that we should allow space to move on to AOC and Jasmine Crockett, for people to have disagreed with his thoughts, but understand that what AOC was calling for is to say that, yes, we should put something forward, a resolution forward to condemn any acts of political violence. I don't think that everybody in the chamber has to say it needs to be named after Charlie Kirk, because obviously he welcomed conversation and disagreement. What I understand is that the day that he's being honored is the same day as George Floyd's birthday, right? And so there's a lot of conversation around that. But the fact that he said before, and I want to make sure I got this right, quote, George Floyd was a father and didn't deserve to die, yet still a scumbag. It's like he said these words around somebody. We want to fire people for doing the same thing about Charlie Kirk.
I don't want to fire anyone for criticizing Charlie Kirk, nor do I want to fire anyone.
Well, a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people online have called for people to get their job. And so that's kind of like, you can say Jasmine Crockett doesn't have to agree with the fact that on George Floyd's birthday, we're calling it Charlie Kirk Day when he referred to George Floyd as a scumbag. But when people criticize
Charlie Kirk, they're criticizing things he said. When people criticize George Floyd, they're criticizing the fact that he was
the way that he chose to live.
That he committed multiple crimes, including threatening.
The fact is that he didn't deserve to die, neither did Charlie Kirk.
Neither does.
Right, and that's where kind of like, that's where the agreement is. When you get into
why we're critiquing their personal. But anyway, I don't care. A congressional resolution makes no difference to me. I actually would prefer if Congress doesn't pass meaningless resolutions pronouncing a moral view on one thing or the other. We're about to have another governmental default, like the Doge cuts are not.
That's
like,
fair.
Do your jobs, cut the government, cut the spending, empty gestures about I love this person, I don't love this person. Stop it. Go do real work is my
I did not think you were about to say that,
Congress. I don't care about the resolution.
Okay, well, coming up, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation banning ICE agents from wearing masks. But will the bill be enforceable? We'll discuss that next. Don't go anywhere. Governor Gavin Newsom is trying to take action against the Trump administration. He's signing legislation that would ban ICE from wearing masks.
Well, the bill, however, is likely to be challenged in court since it's unclear whether California has the power to stop a federal agency from doing what it wants.
Now, here is Newsom over the weekend.
Unmarked cars, people en masse, people quite literally disappearing, no due process, no rights in a democracy where we have rights. This is a disgrace. This is an outrage, what we have allowed to happen in this country. Unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
Now, before Newsom's announcement, an ex-post from his press office angered some on the right. The post reads, quote, Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day today. You're welcome, America.
DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin responded, writing, this reads like a threat. This is ugly, Gavin Newsom. Your keyboard warrior team may hide behind their laptops and spew this kind of vitriol, but you'd never have the guts to say this to her face. In terms of the masking issue, I think it's deeply ironic to see Gavin Newsom, a blue state governor, now fighting to
you're
stop
gonna bring this to COVID?
people from wearing masks. I thought I'd never live to see the day, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of the issue, look, I mean, I actually agree. I don't think law enforcement should be disguising their identity. I think that lends itself toward mistakes being made. I've read all sorts of cases of people, have the authorities break your door down in the middle of the night and don't identify themselves, and you just think you're being robbed, so you shoot. But you defend yourself. You have the right to defend yourself. If it's not, and then so mistakes can happen. I think it's generally bad practice. I find it very unlikely that the state can override the federal policy, however, and I think they're doomed to lose in court.
The country has mostly been in support of, which is why we see more of transparency in the name of the law. Some people argue if we need to enforce more law or less, but transparency has been something that we've largely been able to agree on, right? And so there's not a lot of transparency in people wearing masks. It's like there's not a lot of transparency when we're not seeing the cameras, the body cameras attached to officers and things. So it would be ideal if we could just keep these cameras on and allow people to have
body cameras are great. Body cameras are the police's best friend,
right?
Because then it goes to show when they're unfairly accused of whatever.
Fine,
then
and
you
it
watch
also
the
goes
footage,
to
you go,
show
nope, it was perfectly legitimate.
And in most times, you're right. Police officers generally do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it also shows when they don't do the right thing, and has helped us multiple times to show, oh, that was an overly aggressive approach to this incident. And so I think on both sides of the aisle, that's why I said it's an equal issue. So masking, I think we should consider not having people just be covering their entire faces, just do the job. They said they're worried about retaliation, but I mean, what retaliation are you facing that officers are not?
I mean, maybe they can be masked in a way that hides their identity if they're still clearly labeled as police officer, so you don't know, though that's Joe Wilson on Facebook, I know what he looks like. That's a little different than them not identifying themselves as law enforcement at all, or wearing nothing that says ICE or police or whatever.
And
I
just
think
throwing
that
somebody in a car and people
that's right. Can you tell that's apart from kidnapping?
Exactly.
And the Trump administration could just say, oh no, we're just being COVID precautions.
No, that would be ridiculous.
Gavin Newsom
That would be a ridiculous comparison.
And be like, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
So, and I also want to go back to the tweet. Can we agree that was over-dramatized, what he said? It's going to be a bad day for Kristi Noem. Do you feel like that was so scary he should not be saying those words?
I don't remember what you're talking about. I know we just read it. It's early in the morning.
Okay,
what is it?
So basically, Governor Gavin Newsom tweeted out and said it's going to be a bad day for Kristi. Look,
there it is.
You're going to have a bad day today. You're welcome, America.
Oh, because he's...
So...
Oh, and that was interpreted as some kind of threat?
As a threat. But I just want to remind everybody who's so up in arms about this, aside from the timing, which I'm aware of,
I thought it was
it's
so
not
serious,
time to say anything. Yeah, exactly. You didn't take it that serious. On the campaign trail, I want to quote President Trump's tweets. If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. I didn't take that as a threat. Thought people were overreacting.
A lot of people took it as a threat.
But I didn't.
Right.
Another campaign tweet. He said it's going to be one real rough, nasty, violent day will eradicate crime immediately. Talking about police, if they just, it was almost, what's that movie called where the police just can do anything for 24 hours and then...
Oh, The Purge?
The Purge, yes, that's what he called for, a purge. But we didn't take it seriously, right?
Yeah.
So the same people that saw those tweets and said, okay, if he said it's going to be a bad day, come on, have some balance.
Fair enough.
Next on Rising are some of late Charlie Kirk's closest allies undermining the very thing that he fought for. More on that in my lens. Stick around.
All right, Lindsey, what's in your lens?
I think you're going to love this one today. We're talking about the woke right. So there's a term floating around right now. Like I just said, the woke right. And if you haven't heard it before, you're about to. So it's being used to describe conservatives who are suddenly embracing the very tactics they've spent years mocking. I mean, moral shaming, loyalty tests, and cancel culture style pile-ons. Now, James Lindsey, who's a writer that actually used to work with Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, coined the phrase a long time ago. He warned that if conservatives keep moving in this direction, they'd be walking down a self-destructive path. Well, here we are. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the calls for retribution against anyone who dares criticize him have been deafening. Some conservatives want people fired. Some people want publicly shamed, even prosecuted. And here's the irony. Charlie Kirk built his entire career as a warrior for free speech. Now, in his name, some of his closest allies are undermining the very thing that he fought for. Candace Owens put it this way.
Pam Bondi, who is a complete loser and a tool, is trying to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk to lay the groundwork for hate speech laws in America. The very thing that Charlie was fighting against. They all just got right to work.
And Tucker Carlson sounded the same alarm.
You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country.
Even Senator Ted Cruz called out FCC Chairman Brendan Carr's latest move against Jimmy Kimmel's show.
That's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, "Nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it." I like Brendan Carr, but we should not be in this business. We should denounce it.
And that was a terrible Italian accent, but it was a good point. Now, let me pause right here. Republicans are no strangers to holding each other accountable. They just look at how they spar about Epstein files or call out overcorrections inside their own party. Democrats could actually learn a thing or two from that playbook. But what I can't stomach is the selective outrage. Now, for years, MAGA conservatives decried censorship, rallying against so-called liberal cancel culture. But now, some of those same voices are playing the censorship card themselves. And the biggest hypocrite of them all might be our president, Donald Trump. Do y'all remember this moment from Inauguration Day?
After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
Or take Elon Musk, who in August of 2023 boldly tweeted, quote, "If you were unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something on this platform, we will fund your entire legal bill, no limit. Please let us know." So which is it? Free speech for all or only free speech for people that you agree with? Because right now it looks like MAGA has gone from mocking cancel culture to manufacturing it on their own. If conservatives truly want to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy, they can't just weaponize grief to silence dissent. That's not protecting free speech. That's betraying it. Do better. If you believe in something, fight to make it a law for everyone, not just the people on your side. Otherwise, you're not defending freedom. You're just running your own version of cancel culture and just calling it something else.
Well, I agree with that point, obviously, Lindsey. I've talked about it a lot in my own work. I don't think everyone on the right is behaving this way. I mean, you showed multiple people. Ted Cruz and his...
But the voices are loud, but there's still not
Tucker
the mass.
Carlson,
There's still not the masses are still
kind of pretty loud voices.
I mean, the ones at the top are not the ones doing this. So you have Pam Bondi, President Trump, who doubled down on what Brendan Carr did with the FCC, saying, "Oh, we should pull licenses." And he said, "I support Pam Bondi most recently." So it's like his administration is not doing what the MAGA base wants. If you're saying that the overwhelming MAGA base is loud against this, because I've seen selective few senators and things speak up or podcasters, but not everyone. So if everyone as a whole is all against this, then why is leadership not following any of their lead in this then? Why is the president still calling for even more, for FCC to go even further and pull licenses? Why are we taking steps in the wrong direction?
Trump is not ideological. Trump is not He said it at the memorial that he believes in persecuting his enemies, that he was persecuted and now it's his turn. He is in charge now. And there's a broader idea on the right that we should not have to play by the rules that Democrats or the left or the liberals refuse to play by. That we would like to be principled about free speech and due process and a bunch of other things, but doing that gets us nowhere because Democrats are going to do whatever they can to win or seize power and harm us. So if we're fighting fair and they're fighting dirty, we should not be fighting fair. Now, my criticism of that way of thinking is, at present, the Republicans do have a lot of power and could be using that power to make, in this metaphor, the game more, or the rules of the game more inflexible and harder to break and bend by Democrats. For instance, if control of the government could make it so the FCC has less to say on political content in general, is less involved in, or that its mandate is narrower. They could abolish it outright. They could do a bunch of different things other than saying, now we are going to persecute Democratic speech in the same way that our speech was persecuted, which is just a recipe for Democrats to do even more next time. And then Republicans will say, well, Democrats are going to do even more next time anyway. And I say, okay, well then let's Democrat-proof the system. Let us blunt the instruments of our oppression so that they will not be used against us. That's my view of what Trump should be doing. Blunt the instruments of the oppressor.
Oh, the oppressor. Now the whole conservative party is oppressed. Okay. I just want to say, it looks like President Trump is on an overall silencing campaign. In the last few weeks, we've seen him sue the New York Times and that get thrown away because it was too hard for even, a court to understand. It was like a lot of blah, blah, blah. What are you suing them for? Nobody understood. We saw him put somebody in place at CBS that's a former ambassador for him to review and be unbiased to make sure that the news is not swaying in any one direction that's extremely biased, right? We see him defund
biased news.
Wait, and so we see him try to defund public broadcasting, which generally reports the facts, like PBS and NPR. So he's going on this tirade and campaign, and now he's saying, I'd like to pull funding and license, no, not funding, he wants to pull licenses from broadcast networks that have a negative depiction of me. This is ridiculous. At some point, you have to say it's going way beyond and way past what a president should be involved in, unless you want to have state-run media, right? Everything is not going to be
NPR is state
flowers and butterflies about President Trump. We're going to be like Russia in a second with propaganda all over our news if we only do things that President Trump likes. And so that's the path we're going down. And I know that conservatives don't want to go down that path. So I don't even understand why this is a conversation.
News has propaganda?
No, I don't think that we have Russia propaganda. I think people get it wrong and are supposed to make corrections if they're holding it by journalistic standards, which we see in every magazine and every newspaper. They'll put a little asterisk. And there's even a whole archive page that shows you the original article in case people try to play games and act like they didn't have the original context in the article. So I think we have plenty of checks and balances in our system and plenty of outlets like Newsmax, Fox, Reason that we all named to balance out if you do think that it's so right or left leaning.
Well, and speaking of that, one of the things I wanted to bring up on this subject that I was going to bring up in my radar, but we ran out of time. This is a perfectly good time to bring it up now. It feels almost quaint to me to be discussing the FCC saying what you can and cannot say, for broadcast television.
Quaint? What do you mean?
Most people are getting their news from YouTube and from TikTok and from there's an entire ecosystem of information delivery that is good for good reason outside the FCC's purview, where the vast majority of people are consuming news and information that way. So you're like, there's this little thing that's the old way. It's like they're aggressively regulating cave paintings when the word has been
now we know that,
which is a good thing.
Beyond
the government oversight,
and some people get their information from social media. And just to put a button on that, Elon Musk is running Twitter and making it more conservative. Specifically, has his AI answering
making it more free.
More conservative. No, he's changing the answers for Grok. And then TikTok is now going to be owned by Trump's friends, which I think is also ridiculous. So they are cornering every single information market and going to put naturally disinformation.
Well, President Biden signed a law to have TikTok sold off to someone.
Which I didn't think was a good idea. So here we are.
Guess who bought it?
Here we are. You're Trump's friends, and now it's a disaster.
Well, he shouldn't have done that.
Here we are. I think this whole thing is a disaster. The Trump administration is making a big change to H-1B visas, and critics say it will hurt the tech industry. We'll have more on that next. Stay with us.
President Trump has signed a proclamation that will raise the fee for new H-1B visas to $100,000. These visas are used by companies to hire skilled foreign workers, but the White House argues that the visa takes jobs away from American citizens. A statement on the White House website says, in part, American workers are being replaced with lower-paid foreign labor, creating an economic and a national security threat to the nation. President Trump's imposing higher costs on companies seeking to use the H-1B program in order to address the abuse of the program, stop the undercutting of wages, and protect our national security.
Now, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt later clarified that this $100K fee will apply only to new visa applicants, not those who already have a visa. She also said that the $100,000 is just a one-time fee, but that appeared to directly contradict Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, who stated several times that it will cost $100,000 annually. Take a look.
If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land. Train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here. $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board.
Regardless, reactions on social media were quite mixed. CNN managing editor Zaka Jacobs said that Trump just killed the H-1B visa. Companies now have to pay $100,000 per year to bring foreign high-skilled workers to the U.S. This will dissuade them from doing so. Some jobs will be offshored. For Indian techies, the American dream just got killed.
But Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings was more supportive, saying, quote, "I've worked on H-1B politics for 30 years. Trump's $100,000 per year tax is a great solution. It will mean H-1B is used just for very high-value jobs, which will mean no lottery needed and more certainty for those jobs."
Well, I'm not a huge fan of this change. I've spoken before on why I think the H-1B visa program is good. I am not part of the MAGA camp that thinks protecting American jobs at all costs is worth doing. I want the best and brightest and most qualified, smartest people, the engineers, to be all working in America rather than in India or China or wherever else. I think we make our country stronger, better, more internationally competitive by allowing that to come here. We're talking about the very high-skilled immigrants, not low-skilled immigrants. These are not people who commit crimes. These are not people who cause the disorder. This is an economic issue. And to say that we don't want them, or that, and anytime the government says, yeah, the company will just have to pay more, and then I'm like, stop. That's where you lost me. We don't need to make it harder for. Even though business of like, America yeah, we'll is pay. Business. They don't really want to pay, or I don't know. Then maybe this helps the wealthier and richer and better the companies that can afford to pay, and then the little guys who'd love to hire some really well-qualified engineers, they can't afford to do it and they can't compete. In the same way that Walmart loves minimum wage. Keep raising that minimum wage, baby. We can afford to pay it. Our competitors can't afford to pay it. So I have a lot of skepticism.
There was a beef with Elon Musk in this H-1B visa,
right? He's for the H-1B visa.
And so everybody there's a huge rift within the MAGA base
about. And Trump has said he's for it too.
Trump. And I was looking up, I'm like, okay, what is the cost difference?
Miller wants to destroy it.
Right now, I was seeing a little bit under $1,000 to get this situated. To go to $100,000 seems like such an extreme jump. I was trying to find out how much it is now. I was seeing mixed numbers. One said $215, something said like $600. But let's say it's under $1,000. Let's say even $1,500 was the highest number I saw. From $1,500, let's say, go there to $100,000. It's so absolutely ridiculous that unless you're Netflix, you're pretty much canceling people out of the equation. And I think when you think about
that's a big difference whether it's one time, as Caroline Leavitt said, or every year, as Howard Lutnick said. Why can't these people get on the same? Like, that is just sloppy. Like, tell us what the actual policy is.
And I think the goal is that people come up to the country for up to 6 years and work alongside the best and brightest in the U.S. and bring international minds so we're extremely competitive in these highly selective and specific jobs that maybe you have more foreign experience doing. Some multilingual, AI coding, like whatever it is, they're bringing people in that are highly specialized. So unless somebody went to school to study this specific thing in this specific language, why would we not have a conglomerate of the best people, like you said, working in the U.S. and allowing us to compete at a higher level in today's market? The same people arguing that we were going to fall behind, which is why we should not regulate AI in any way internationally to places like China, Russia, the UAE, are now arguing that we make it harder for us to keep up with these same markets by not bringing people that have international knowledge at the highest level to come work at U.S. companies. It just doesn't make sense. And again, to not have any clarity on the policy, people who are here working right now, scrambling, seeing this, like, wait, I have to convince my employer to pay this?
Yeah, this doesn't affect people who've already been approved.
No, I know, but they're also saying it's a one-time payment and then it's not. So people obviously just don't want, until this is solidified and an example of it has gone on for a decent amount of time, I think people are uncomfortable.
I was seeing people argue that it would be better to do this fee for the lottery system, or reform or change or get rid of the lottery system in some way, which makes a lot less sense than the H-1B visa system. You know my immigration policy. I want the three criteria. Everyone who is smart, rich, or hot can move here to America. That's my policy. You meet one of those three criterias, you can buy your way in if you're rich, and then we should want you here, and that's good. Furthermore, I know we're so far beyond this, but doesn't Congress have to adjust the visa program? I'm sorry, I know no one cares.
I know President Trump doesn't care that there's a Congress. There's three branches of the government.
Congress doesn't care that there's a Congress.
They both. Yeah, I'll sit alongside you in that
argument.
They're
too busy arguing about, resolution. Are we going to condemn some violence or all violence? That's their business today. Should we condemn some violence or all violence? It doesn't matter. Do a real law. Do real work.
And if we're going to go forward with this $100,000 visa, I think that President Trump should be the first to retroactively donate $100,000 since his wife, Melania Trump, and since he's such a billionaire, rich man, billion, he should donate $100,000 since his wife used this H-1B visa when she was modeling, and he should give it back to our country. You said hot, exactly. Okay, fine. She's a model.
Right in my...
And he loves the word hot for everything. Our country's going to be the hottest. Well, be hottest and give you $100,000 and show people the way. Mm-hmm. Show people the way about how to give back to our country. Start with paying your wife's dues that are now retroactively owed since you're charging people that want to come to the country, just like your wife did the same way right now. if a model wants to do that. Now the people that hired her.
I mean, to give some fairness to the MAGA perspective, I try to represent it even when I don't agree with it. What people who support this are going to be saying is, well, it's not fair for them to come in and why are American educational institutions that are saddling our young people with massive debt and they can't get jobs because there's an incentive program to bring in foreigners. I'm trying my best to justify. I can't justify. I think the best qualified people should work at companies. I don't know what to say.
I think there's just two levels of thinking within. There's some people who just want anybody to come here at any time, and then there's people who are.
We have to have some rules.
Right. There's some people who want some rules. Some people who want criminals out of the country.
Yeah.
I think most people can agree that anyone who's a criminal is out of the country. But even who immigration is affecting, not on, because I feel like this H-1B visa conversation is very high level, very skilled worker, high salaried, even with they're paying lower than U.S. salaries. I mean, I think entry level a decade ago to be a Google assistant was like, you're getting 90 grand, which some Americans across the country, most are not saying is their average income. So we're talking about really high level, expensive paying jobs. But average Americans that come in, or non-Americans that come in and do these labor jobs, are also lacking now because of some of these policies. And so we're just going down and figuring out how can we start to ruin the economy more and more. We went to the highest level, I haven't heard an example, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, of a criminal that had an H-1B visa that came here for the highest level tech job and then killed someone. Right, so it's just what are we doing?
I mean, the complaint is that you can underpay these people because they just want to get into America. But I was seeing some of the economic research showing that they get underpaid was doing some faulty math because they are on average younger than the American workforce, the people who can actually move and come here. So of course they're getting paid less because you generally make more over the trajectory of your career arc. So some of that research was.
We're agreeing too much today. It's making me uncomfortable. You got to get a different perspective today.
Hopefully we got something COVID-related coming up. Next up, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, it's not going to be this, took a jab at former VP Kamala Harris. Find out why. We'll be right back. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is warning former Vice President Kamala Harris that she's going to have to answer for why she never raised concerns about former President Biden's health.
Now, Harris says in her new book that Shapiro was one of her VP options for the 2024 race, but that she seemed more interested in the role he seemed more interested in being president himself, as opposed to how he could help her beat Trump. Now, Harris says that Shapiro even asked an aide about art pieces he could add to the vice president's residence.
How dare he? That doesn't seem like the most
drama.
On his new radio show, broadcaster Stephen A. Smith asked Shapiro why Harris didn't address concerns about Biden's reelections during the race as opposed to in her new book. Here's Shapiro's response.
I mean, look, I haven't read the former vice president's book, and she's going to have to answer to how she was in the room and yet never said anything publicly. And I was very vocal with him privately and extremely vocal with his staff about my concerns about his fitness to be able to run for another term. I was direct with them. I told them my concerns. I told them my worries. I told them what I was seeing in the polls.
Now, Harris wrote in her book how she thought that in retrospect, leaving Biden's reelection decision up to him was, quote, recklessness. This is campaign season starting up. Gavin Newsom has his strategy. It's like basically be a mirror to President Trump. Josh Shapiro is like, get my biggest, because Kamala's still polling as one of the top people to run. It's still early. Sure. So he's like, get her out of the way. And Kamala is trying to distance herself from President Biden. Now, my biggest issue with Kamala doing that right now is that it's just too little too late. There was so much on the line. Remember the conversations that democracy was at stake. We already had been through one Trump presidency, that basically the sky was falling if he became president again. So to sit back in silence, and this goes for Karine Jean-Pierre, this goes for Kamala Harris, this goes for anybody. Now, Josh Shapiro is saying that he spoke up. I hope he has receipts. Hope he has an email, something where he's like, we can't, a conversation, an aide that could back him up. Because he better have receipts.
Really trying to get on the, I was.
Yeah, so you better have receipts.
I saw something, said something.
Because everybody.
But he said something then privately. What did he say in public?
But okay, everybody has to be, held accountable, because that's the biggest thing. There's a trust issue now within the Democratic Party. And not that I believe that President Biden wasn't cognizant enough to finish his term.
I believe that.
I don't. So we disagree with that. But I believe that if they felt like he would just to finish at one term, then they should have done everything in their power to make sure that that was the way forward. And it's disappointing to see everyone write these tell-all books, which will obviously be profitable for them. I'm not saying it'll make you millionaires, but books with these level of interest in politics generally do well. We saw what happened with Jake Tapper's book. And so it just is unfortunate because apparently it was a really dramatic stakes at hand that were life or death for many people. They're not.
Yeah, I want to get back to her saying that she in the book she didn't pick Josh Shapiro when he was too excited, he was too enthusiastic about being vice president. What is it? Like, maybe she can't comprehend that someone would actually be enthusiastic about doing this job.
That was a weird
seems
thing.
like very not clear thinking. It seems like she did, honestly, I don't know, it looks like she did the exact same thing Hillary Clinton did, which was also a losing move, to pick the most boringest guy named Tim, who will not upstage you in any way because he's just goofy and not particularly charismatic. Tim Kaine was a total non-entity. Tim Walz was slightly more memorable, but not in really a good way. Just not high-quality picks. But they knew they wouldn't be upstaged by them. She saw in him a potential star, maybe. I think Josh Shapiro has a number of good qualities for a politician.
Star?
I mean, he's the most moderate Democrat. I prefer him. I openly prefer him. The cards on the table. And she didn't want that. She did not want to pick the governor, the popular governor of the must-win state. This is amateur mistakes here.
I think so too. I mean, look, iron sharpens iron. You got to bring, you want the best on your team.
Give me some idiot named Tim.
I thought it was an odd choice too, especially
Maybe the
because
next Democrat
Pennsylvania
will not
was
do
so
that.
significant specifically in this race that I thought it was a very odd choice as well. And especially her recent comments also about Buttigieg, saying that the world wasn't ready. I do think that she had some validity in her statements, but it's just all like creating a mess. I don't know how it sets you up for winning the next election if she does want to run. I don't really understand.
She wants to run, but again, this book, and I think she will run, and I think she will have a shot because of her name recognition and her higher profile. And if so many people run, they could get,
and also,
they could step on
let's
each
talk about a
other's-
real thing called Trump fatigue. It happens every 4 years.
Well, I mean, that's for the general. I don't know. The Dems might do fine. I don't know. She's going to have a shot at it, but she's not positioning herself well in terms of this book where she's just blaming everyone else. And she can't articulate a clear break with Biden or what she knew and what she should have said, and it's going to be a problem. That does it for us, though, today on Rising Live. Thanks so much for watching, and look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way in just a bit. We will see you back here tomorrow.
I'll be well rested,
just getting started. Bye-bye.